I was elbow deep sculpting a rock wall for a client in his garage, 1,000 square foot rock wall, when I got a phone call from a business owner asking,
"Hey John, it's me, business owner. I need to know if you've ever built a trade show booth."
I've done theaters, restaurants, R2-D2s, Harry Potter. Of course I've built a trade show booth.
"Well, I have a trade show in Las Vegas coming up, and I need a booth for Jeff's Bagel Run. The booth's got to be assembled by just 2 people with no tools, and I need it in 28 days.
So I grabbed Nathan. We head back to the shop. We've got to get started on Jeff's Bagel Run. So I had to leave Dylan and Ryan alone with chainsaws to finish up the job there unsupervised. 4 weeks is not a lot of time, but you still have to make a model. You have to be able to visualize everything. Plus, it really helps you start to get in the flow and really dive into the mood and the feel of what the next project is. Models to me are like the best way that you can physically convey your ideas. You're not forced to be looking through the eyes of somebody else, such as on a computer. They're controlling what you see and how you see the angle. But if you have to build this, or I'm passing this off to Nathan and he has to see it, I want him to be able to control his own cameras and see what he needs to see and not be forced to look at what I'm showing him. Building a scale model absolutely, for me, is a necessity because it allows you to find the most efficient way to use your materials. Such as Jeff's Bagels, I'm using the exact materials that you find inside of their restaurants. So the Corian only comes 30 inches wide by 144 inches long, and it's $2,400 for one piece. I need 2, or do I need 3? I don't know, but that's a big price difference between 2 and 3. I can take the actual dimensions on a piece of tracing paper, lay out all my parts and pieces, cut with an X-Acto blade, and then assemble that and say, I have just enough or I don't have enough.
Hey guys, just popping in for a second because we forgot to mention something really cool. The little scale model we made was so accurate for our Corian measurements that the final drop of all of the Corian we had was just a small little 2-inch by 4.5-inch rectangle. That's all that was left of the material. So the model's great and definitely saved us some money in this case. That's all, just want to pop in for a second. Okay, back to the boss man.
Also, in building small scale models, it transfers over into real life. Like when I have to lay out all the little Jeff's Bagels and it's the correct spacing, I can tape it, glue it, slap it on the model. I wanted to build a bagel table because that'd be so cool, like a 4-foot round bagel table. I knew they were gonna need places to set their things down, sign contracts. That'd be great. I mean, what could be cooler than a large bagel table? But as you'll see, that design changes a little bit later down the road. Model making has always been my favorite. I remember being a little kid, and we've all been there, and we would see the making of Star Wars, and everybody dreamed of being an ILM. That was like the cream of the crop, if you could be into that and just get paid to make models. But the great thing about my job is these are models that I make up out of my head. I don't have blueprints. I'm not trying to match somebody else's ideas. These are my own ideas. So I want to make this place inviting for you to hang out and eat great bagels. So after building the model, I'll call Gary. Gary is an incredible artist. He's an artist, and he works for Jeff's Bagels. He came up with an even better idea. In the back of the model, you can see like I have this little cutout that was going to have an actual video screen. He said, let's do it bigger. So of course, bigger's better. So it ended up being a 6-foot by 6-foot monitor. So when you're standing at the counter and you're looking back, it is exactly like you're in Jeff's Bagels because it's just a live video shot of the back where you see the kitchen, you see the bagels being made, you see everything. So having that in mind, I was now able to bring it into CAD and then start framing everything out so I can begin to make my cuts list. So here you can see Nathan is a wizard at Fusion 360. He's able to figure out the cuts list, how long each piece of aluminum is going to need to be, what angle it's going to be cut at, how things are actually going to join together. And again, it's great in the computer. And that gives you an idea, a sketch to work from. And once you start cutting those pieces and you start taking everything together, that's when you see, oh, you know what? Instead of it being this way, let's make it this way because it's going to insert into this one even better. Then we can get everything through there. So again, Fusion 360, awesome, love it. It's a great tool, but hands-on is where the rubber really hits the road. Everything here is all built out of aluminum and tigged together because there's a weight factor involved. And when you are welding aluminum, just like steel, it will bend. It's very reactive to heat, way more than steel. It dissipates the heat evenly and quickly. So when you do weld one side, it is going to bend, tweak, twist. Now I do know that the Alumicore is completely square. We had to use ratchet straps to rack that aluminum after all that welding back. We would use VHB to attach everything. That's very high bond. Everything is an aluminum frame, a VHB, and then the aluminum panels applied onto it. And once it sticks, it is on. There is no getting that off. A cool trick to Alumicore too is you really don't need a saw. You can scribe down 3 times with a knife and snap it just like drywall. Bada boom, bada bing, we got a wall. So all the wainscoting, PVC. Everything has to be 100% waterproof. We'll use VHB to tack it while we allow the liquid nail to dry. And then attaching it from the back with screws so you can't see anything on the face. We're not puttying any holes or anything on this. We don't have time. I was setting up a 2x4 table here to start working on the sign, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk about cabinets. The cabinets were kind of tricky. They had to function as cabinets, storing refrigerators, as in plural, racks, as well as drinks underneath to serve to, potential clients. They had to look like a whole piece, like a whole cabinet unit. They couldn't be like individual cabinets kind of stuck together. We needed to pull this off as if this is one complete continuous cabinet, and all needed to be disassembled without tools and fit into a crate. So we built all of the framing out of 1" by 2" aluminum 1/8" wall. That allowed me to be able to take the aluminum 2" by 1" and then be able to put it against another piece coming here. So at this angle, I had enough meat to then put a bolt up through into the 1x2 on edge. That extra support was needed because this Corian weighs 225 pounds each slab. I'd like to get some Formica on this today. Anybody that's done Formica, when it comes to the edge and comes to the edge, this is always a joint. Now it would be great if that joint stayed that way, but this is a modular piece. All parts and pieces come apart, gets shipped out, other people put it together. And in order for that corner to come together so perfect and just have a hairline seam down it, that's next to impossible. So the way how we design this is we have the Alumicore coming same height as the angle coming down. So this will get the Formica, this will get the Formica. So this is our only seam. This side panel gets attached to this with wing nuts coming this way. So you can clamp it tighter up and down so you can get a much tighter seam rather than counting on a corner to come together perfect. At least in my mind's eye, that's how it works. We'll see. So after measuring out, getting my center point onto there, I can do the same way I did in the model. That's what the models are great for, a little practice there. So I'll put some tape over top, hold everything into a place, make sure Jeff's doesn't float around, and then I'll key up some areas, such as the bottom of the G, the side of the B, and then I can pull the tape off, apply my glue, and boom, done. So once you have your piece all VHB'd together, your Alumicore's on it, you run the router around the edge because that aluminum frame is true. The paint was a specific color to match the exact color inside of all your Jeff's Bagels. Then I'll begin to apply the contact cement on for the Formica, run the router around the edges of that, make it all true, and of course the battery dies. File your edges so everything is beautiful and perfect. Now time to assemble and see exactly how the Corian's going to fit on top. So the bulk of the booth is done. The skeleton's made, the frame, the whole backdrop of the booth. The counters are there, everything's great, but now we get to sprinkle a little bit of coolness onto it and really make it our own. I have a saying in my shop. Dylan never liked the saying, and over the years, he's come to understand it and embrace it. And the saying is, there aren't any mistakes, only opportunities for improvement. That saying applies to the 4-foot bagel table. I loved it. I thought it was a great idea, but it takes up too much space. And it looks great, but there there isn't enough inviting room. So instead of one large bagel table, the opportunity to improve that was to make 2 smaller bagel tables that are higher up. And I wanted to make it a certain way so when they were stationed in the booth and you're walking by, they almost look floating because there's a hole in the bagel. So you can't really just have a pole come up through the hole and then what, it's gonna spread out into 3. So I came up with a really cool zigzag design. So when you're standing a certain way looking at it at eye level, you don't see how it's just like this floating bagel. We start off with a plasma cutter, which is basically a lightsaber that can cut through 2-inch thick metal. So the steel that I chose to use for the bases is 3/8. 3/8 is a nice thick metal. It has a lot of weight that I also wanted to take advantage of to act as the counterbalance. Here you can see Adam diligently working, removing all the mill scale, the rust, taking off the edges. He's so excited because it didn't take him that long till Nathan showed him, hey man, there's another side. So here we want to get the correct angle for the bagel table. So Nathan will ballpark just about how close the angle should be. Then we'll hang the plumb line right over top of our position that we want, that we've marked onto the base. Hold it, he tacks it into place, then we can find the angle. Then we can transfer that angle to the plasma cutter and make our parts. So once we have the plumb line exactly where we want it, we need to build structure into the bagel itself because people are going to be leaning on it. They're going to be grabbing it, checking out like, what's this made out of? So what I found out is when designing and building things, if I keep in mind that an 8-year-old is going to be attacking it, then it should withstand just about anything. So each bagel itself has to be able to come off of the stand and the stand come off of the pole. If you just do it all out of pipe steel, that bagel is going to be able to rotate, and once it rotates, it could then fall. So we solved that problem by taking 2 angles, weld them together to make a square, take 2 more angles, just slightly bigger square. Now we've made a square that it cannot twist on. Off of that square, we can now weld our braces going out. So once the steel is trenched out in half the bagel and set into place and leveled up about as good as you're going to get it, you then liquid nail foam inside of that. Then glue the 2 halves together and it's not going anywhere. Then we'll use a hot wire. Hot wire is a variac connected to nichromium wire. If you ever looked inside your toaster and you see that orange wire that glows, that's nichromium wire. And then hook that up to your variac and then it gets glowy orange and you just wrap it around and things start falling off. So what Nathan is doing here is creating the top half and bottom half of the bagel where I can insert the cream cheese after I fiberglassed it. You have to protect styrofoam because polyester resin, when it hits it, it just dissolves. Exactly what they did in Aliens when he drools on the Nostromo and it goes down into the styrofoam floor. Once the bagels have been covered in tin foil, the styrofoam's protected, then I will fiberglass them. As you can see in this bagel, it is cherry red because I like to kick off my fiberglass hot. I kick it off hot because I need to apply the Bondo the same day. You have a 24-hour chemical bond to polyester resins, vinyl esters, anything like that. After that 24-hour window, you have to sand it, scuff the surface to give it a mechanical fashion or a surface adhesion to it. Nobody likes to sand fiberglass, so I will kick off that fiberglass hot and then kick my Bondo off hotter on top of that. The way I use Bondo, you have to use a book because it's going to kick off hot and then you just tear the page off, boom, clean page, start the next one. I was able to get both bagels fiberglassed and bondoed in one day. They weren't 100%, but I knew that I don't have to take them to 100% because I still have to add the cream cheese. There's still the problem of making sure it's level. So what I can do here is it's on the actual stand it's going on. I can then build up Bondo blobs. I can set the level across and then take my cheese grater and grate it down until that level is level. Once the Bondo blobs have hardened, I can come back now with my Bondo and really begin to sculpt the creases that a bagel has, the little folds into it. And all that's done with the cheese grater to get the basic shape and blend the blobs in. And now I know that glass is going to sit perfectly level and I've created more character to what a real bagel looks like. So once I have the bagel where I like it, it looks like a blueberry bagel. And then I'll start adding my cream cheese. I gotta let that expand, and that, you know, that's gonna take 20-30 minutes to cure, which gives me time to jump on bagel number 2. After fiberglassing it, I will cover it in epoxy. The cream cheese sticks out the furthest, protrudes the most on this bagel. Looks like bagel earth. I know that the cream cheese is going to protrude the most on this bagel. So after fiberglassing it, I cover it with epoxy. Epoxy is going to withstand the most damage. Like I said, 8-year-old kids attacking this, people's belt buckles, people grabbing the cream cheese because it's like this attractive nuisance that you just want to grab and shake and test the durability of this table. It's going to be the #1 handled thing when removing the bagel off the stand, putting the bagel into the crate. So I want this to be the most durable piece of the bagel. Once I'm done with the sculpting of the epoxy on the top of the bagel, I can flip it over and begin to add all the undercuts that cream cheese would have if it was really like this thick, fluffy kind of cream cheese. So once the epoxy is cured, I can now begin to prime. And I love it when the priming comes. It shows you how close or far away you are. Using a headlamp and 220, I can begin to refine everything and then Scotch-Brite everything down. Once I'm happy with the final result of the primer, I begin to lay down some color. When you're painting something like this, you have to keep in mind that you cannot touch it. So I have painted more things laying down on my back than I can even remember. You're constantly moving, constantly changing the light, trying to get that light exactly where you need to see it. Woo. So I just finished painting these. It takes about 15 minutes for the paint to cure. Now I'm gonna fine line. I don't know if you guys have ever fine lined before. It's awesome. You can take it and it actually is like vinyl and it can stretch around. You can make any kind with it. And then here's the trick to cut it. Set the razor blade down, move the tape. Doesn't make any mark. Now, a lot of you painters out there are probably asking like why I did this backwards. Typically when you paint, you're gonna paint the smallest area and then tape that off. It's a lot faster, it saves time and material such as tape and paper. The way how the cream cheese feathered into the bagel, it was easier for me to pull off a perfect straight line on a bagel rather than taping off the curvature of the cream cheese where it dies into the bagel. So I knew I could get a crisper line taping the bagel off. Yes, it's more time consuming, but it's worth it. Taping off is a long, tedious process and you can't just go at it. You have to think about every nook and cranny, every possible way that this paint can get through. The average car to paint is around 8 hours. 7 hours you're masking off and 1 hour you're squirting paint. A little trick here I'm gonna show you is how when you take off your fine line, a lot of times people just pull it up and that's gonna pull your paint away from the surface. You wanna cut that paint. Best way to do that is to take a hold of your fine line here, pull it 180 degrees back and at a 45. So when you start, it cuts that paint as it goes. It'll leave you with a much nicer edge. There's two kinds of painters out there. Those who get runs and liars. Just remember that. Don't be afraid, just go for it. You can always fix what you've messed up, if you do have a run. And look at that, no runs. No, but really, I didn't have any runs. With the bagels being done, the bases are painted black. Do a little branding on the bases. And what else?
It's a Bob's your uncle? I don't... I think we're good. I mean,
So if the bagels are the rims of the car, then the sign is the hood ornament. I wanted the sign to be eye-catching, exactly what you see at Jeff's Bagel Run. I knew I was going to end up stacking a lot of different layers. I want it to be able to reflect in the back. So white PVC as the actual part around another 1x2 piece of aluminum that I could then put nut certs into and be able to use the all thread behind with the wing nut to hold it. And then cut out all the lightning holes, which is just large areas to lighten the thing. It's not actually lightning. After doing that, I knew I wanted some reflection, but I used white acrylic to reflect the lighting that's going to go on the standoff for the Jeff's Bagel run. I probably lost you a little bit on all that over explanation, but it ended up looking really cool. So when I'm adding the LEDs to the back, I knew that I wanted Bagel Run lit up just to look great. Jeff's is standing out proud from the sign anyway, so it's going to look fantastic. Jeff's, and then Bagel Run just all lit up and looking great. And once I plugged it in, that's when all the critics started coming in.
Jeff's isn't lit up.
So after I plugged it in and I walked across the shop and turned around and looked at it, I realized that Jeff's really needed to be lit up. So I stayed a little late that night, added the LEDs to Jeff's, so the whole thing lights up and it looks fantastic. So the hard part's done. Now it's time to build crates. So as Nathan is beginning to build the crates, I'm doing the final touches, such as cladding the outside of our booth so it just looks nice and clean no matter what angle you're looking at. But we can't just build regular crates. Thinking doing a crate so it looks like, you know, came from the alien spacecraft. Do the X's, and then Nathan's like, let's break it up a little bit more rather than just having these long X's, and then we're gonna put the little logo there. All get painted black, and then stencil logo in white on it. Should we Bondo and caulk all of our seams and then buff?
Who's we? Oh my.
Nathan and I wanted to practice disassembling and placing all the parts and pieces into the crates, see just how easy it is or difficult. We were able to disassemble and put everything in their respective positions in the crate in under 23 minutes, doing the final touches on the crates after the stenciling. So the two guys that are actually going to be assembling this are Gary and Trevor. Gary, again, I talked about him earlier, incredible artist. He's great, awesome. And then Trevor's cool. Those two came to assemble the whole thing. We told them, all right, you know, Nathan and I did the whole thing in 24 minutes. I remember Gary saying the gauntlet's been thrown, and they went at it. They didn't even talk. They knew exactly what was happening, what one guy was doing and the other, divide and conquer. We had colors on certain things, so they knew pink went with pink or green went with green. All self-explanatory, no tools needed, everything's wingnut, and they got that thing together in 28 minutes. Beautiful, worked out great. They were extremely happy. So we had 28 days to do this. We ended up getting done 5 days ahead of time. So this whole project actually took us 23 days, start to finish, and the training of assembling was a breeze. It took them 24 minutes to learn. So now it's time to pack it all up and ship it off to Vegas. Here it is at the trade show, complete with the 6x6 screen in the back. Beautiful job assembling. Look at that beautiful sign. Corian countertops. This is a really fun project. I tend to find the projects that go quick end up being the most enjoyable. Taking this from a model to real life was a lot of fun, and my team really killed it on this.
Yeah. Can you push me forward?
We've just finished all the John Wick episodes. If you haven't checked those out, please do. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I got to get back and check on Ryan and Dylan and make sure they're still alive and continue sculpting 1,000 square feet of rock. And I'll see you guys next month.